Okay, so today we're diving into something that's been on my mind lately. And it's this whole thing about how we experience content.
Yeah.
Like when we read a story or listen to a podcast, but with a little twist.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at it through the lens of, is it made by a human or is it made by AI?
Right.
And this all kind of started when I saw some feedback on Le Podcast de Philippe.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking about the different ways people react to knowing something's AI generated versus, thinking it's made by a person.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
And then I came across this study from the US that looked at exactly that.
Oh, wow.
Like how people evaluate written text when they know it's AI.
Interesting.
So
That's what we're going to dig into today.
that's good.
Oh, and by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, it would be
me-
amazing if you could help us hit 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right, so let's jump into this study.
Okay.
Basically what they did was they had ChatGPT write a short story.
And they made it sound like it was written by this author, Jason Brown.
Got it.
And they got over 650 people
Wow.
to read it.
Okay.
Split them into two groups.
Right.
One group knew it was AI. The other group thought it was a real human author.
Interesting setup.
Yeah, and then they had them read like halfway through the story.
Okay.
And then answer some questions about it.
What kind of questions?
Oh, great. Like, like how predictable was it? Did they feel emotionally connected to the characters? How evocative was the writing? That kind of stuff.
Oh, I see. So getting at the subjective experience of reading it.
Exactly. And the big one was whether they'd be willing to pay money to finish reading the story.
Oh, that's a good measure of their actual engagement.
Right.
So what did they find?
Well, here's where things start to get interesting.
Yeah.
The people who knew it was AI written, they were way more critical.
Really?
Yeah, like across the board.
Interesting.
They rated the story lower on pretty much all those subjective measures compared to the group that thought it was by a human.
So it's almost like knowing that an AI created it made them hold it to a different standard.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Fascinating.
Right. Like there's this immediate bias
Yeah.
based on just knowing where the content came from.
Yeah, like it's prejudged in a way.
Exactly. But here's the real kicker.
Okay.
Despite being more critical, the group that knew it was AI,
Right.
they were just as likely to say they'd pay to finish the story as the other group.
Oh, wow. So even though they were like, this isn't as good, they were still hooked.
Yeah, it's like their initial judgment and their actual behavior didn't quite line up.
So maybe the story itself was just good enough to overcome that initial bias, at least in the moment.
Right, exactly. It's like intellectually, they might have had reservations, but they were still engaged with the narrative.
Yeah, I can see that.
But hold on, there's one more thing from the study.
Okay, what's that?
After they finished reading, they asked everyone if they'd be willing to pay less for a whole book if they knew it was written by AI.
Interesting.
Okay. And you know what they found?
I'm guessing there was a difference?
Big time.
Really?
About 40% of all the participants said they would pay less for an AI-written book.
Wow. So even though they were initially willing to pay to finish the story, the knowledge that AI wrote it did affect how much they valued the entire work.
Yeah, it's like there's this underlying bias, even if it doesn't show up right away.
Right, like it's more of a long-term perception thing.
Yeah, and this whole thing reminds me of what Phipe Waterloo was saying about Le Podcast de Philippe.
Oh, yeah, how so?
Well, he's very upfront about the fact that he uses AI to generate the podcast discussions.
Right, based on his own research.
Exactly, and he's said that a lot of the feedback he gets is about how the podcast sounds like AI.
Oh, interesting.
Like people focus on that more than the actual content of the discussions.
So it's kind of like that initial bias we saw in the study. It's shaping how people experience the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the knowledge of the AI is kind of overshadowing everything else.
And Philippe even wondered if using more advanced AI for the visuals.
Like, what do you mean?
Like using something like Hagen to create a really realistic looking presentation.
Right.
He thought maybe that would help people focus more on the topics themselves.
That's a really interesting idea.
Right, because if it looks and sounds just like a human-made presentation, maybe people wouldn't even think about the AI part as much.
And that initial bias might not even come up.
Exactly. It makes you think about what really drives our perceptions of this kind of content.
So this all leads to a bigger question, I think.
What's that?
As AI gets even better and more common, for writing and podcasts and everything else, how are we going to feel about it?
Right.
Are we going to keep having these biases?
Yeah.
Or will we start to just focus on the quality of the content, regardless of who or what made it?
That's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look at the study. People were willing to engage even when they knew it was AI.
Right, but then later they said they'd pay less for a whole book if it was AI.
And then you have Le Podcast de Philippe, where the AI aspect is like the main thing people talk about.
It really makes you wonder how it's all going to play out.
Yeah. Will the content itself eventually become more important than how it was made?
That's something to think about, for sure.
Definitely something to keep an eye on as AI keeps evolving.
Absolutely, and I think it's a conversation we all need to be having as this technology becomes more and more a part of our lives.
Couldn't agree more. All right, well, that's all the time we have for today, but this is definitely something to ponder.
Yeah, lots to think about.
Thanks for joining us, and don't forget to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube.
And let us know your thoughts in the comments. See you next time.